The stars over Elvara 4 were no longer peaceful. Great fires burned in the blackness as ships exploded one after another. The Krath war swarm had come without warning, pouring out of hyperspace in numbers too large to count. They were like a wave of metal and rage, sweeping through the defenses of the Elvari people. Commander Silra, leader of the Elvari defense fleet, stood in the command chamber of her flagship. Her silver eyes were fixed on the tactical screen as red enemy markers filled it. "Pull back to formation, Beta," she ordered, but her voice was tight. She knew it would not matter. Their shields were failing, their ships were falling apart, and their fighters were being hunted down like insects. The Krath ships were monstrous, spikes of black steel, bristling with weapons that tore through armor like paper. Their beams cut through hulls, leaving entire crews lost in seconds. Silra's fleet was supposed to hold the line until reinforcements arrived from the Galactic Council, but the message from the Council had been clear and cold. No assistance can be sent at this time. The Council had given excuses: border tensions, political instability, treaties with the Krath they could not break. But Silra knew the truth. They were afraid. As the Krath broke through the last line of orbital defense, Silra gave the only order left. "Send the distress signal to everyone," the comms officer hesitated. "Commander, that means—" "Yes, all frequencies, all sectors, anyone who can hear." A moment later, a desperate message was sent into the void. "This is the Elvari Union. Our worlds are under attack. Our fleets are destroyed. Any ship, any being who can hear this, help us." The signal left their system, bouncing from relay to relay until it went where it was never meant to go, into the forbidden sectors of space. Thousands of light years away, in the shadows between trade routes, an ancient listening station hummed to life. It was buried inside an asteroid, covered with thick armor and surrounded by silence. Its systems had been asleep for decades, waiting. In a dim control room, Captain Elena Ward opened her eyes as an alarm flashed red across the console. She was human, tall, lean, with dark hair pulled back, and sharp eyes that seemed older than her years. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. "Origin?" The station's AI responded in a low, mechanical tone. "Unregistered Elvari broadcast. Signal classification. Priority distress. Content. Plea for military assistance. Enemy identified as Krath Swarm." The name made Ward pause. She leaned back in her chair. "Krath," she repeated softly. The AI continued. "Recommendation: ignore. Target is outside jurisdiction of the Assembly. High risk." Ward didn't answer immediately. She walked to the main viewport, looking out at the asteroid field beyond. Humanity had been in hiding for generations, staying away from galactic politics after the last war. They were called Deathworlders for a reason, born on a planet that bred dangerous creatures and even more dangerous people. Humans had fought wars that made the galaxy uneasy, and when the treaties came, humanity had simply disappeared from sight. But Ward knew there was an unspoken rule among her kind. If a cry for help reached them, they would answer. She tapped her comms. "Connect me to the Assembly." It took minutes for the secure channel to open. Faces appeared. On the large screen, all human, some old and scarred, some young but hard-eyed. The Human Assembly Council sat in darkness, only their silhouettes lit. Ward spoke clearly. "We've received a distress signal from the Elvari Union. Krath Swarm. Invasion. The Galactic Council isn't moving. If we do nothing, they'll be gone in days." One of the elders leaned forward. "And if we move, the Council will know we've broken the silence. Are you ready for that?" "They already fear us," Ward replied. "Better they fear us for doing the right thing than for hiding." There was a pause. Then the elder spoke again. "Authorize war protocol. Send the shadows." Across hidden bases scattered through asteroid belts, moons, and dead worlds, old ships began to wake. Their hulls were dark, built for stealth. Their weapons were relics of a time when humans fought with precision and brutality. Crews assembled quickly, moving with the speed of people who had trained for this day. In deep hangars, engines roared to life, echoing like distant thunder. One by one, the ships vanished into slipspace, leaving no trace. Back on Elvara 4, Commander Silra stood on the balcony of the bunker complex. Above her, the night sky glowed with burning wreckage. She did not know if anyone had heard her call, but far away in the endless dark, the Deathworlders were coming. They came without banners, without announcements, and without asking permission. Their ships were shadows moving through the void, silent and unseen. The Krath did not yet know what was approaching, and when the Deathworlders appeared, the galaxy would remember why they had stayed hidden for so long. Deep inside the cloaked asteroid base known as Haven 7, the command deck was alive with quiet urgency. Screens glowed with star maps, tracking hundreds of potential jump points. Technicians in dark uniforms moved quickly between stations, checking weapons, scanning for enemy patrols, and uploading mission data to ships waiting in their hangars. Captain Elena Ward stood at the center, hands clasped behind her back. Her eyes moved over the holographic display showing the Krath occupation zone around Elvara 4. She had studied the Krath before, vicious, fast, and relentless. They overwhelmed their enemies through sheer numbers, using swarms of ships and overwhelming firepower. They were exactly the kind of enemy that most civilizations avoided. But humans weren't most civilizations. Commander Reed, a broad-shouldered man with a scar across his cheek, approached her. "We've got 20 Shadow-class frigates fueled and armed. Stealth fields are running clean. The crews are ready." Ward nodded. "Any chatter from the Council?" Reed gave a humorless smile. "Oh, they're talking. They've sent 6 fleets to their own borders just in case we come near them. No sign they're sending anything to the Elvari." "Typical," Ward muttered. "Prepare slipspace coordinates. We'll insert at the far edge of the Elvari system and work in." As Reed moved off to relay orders, the deck lights dimmed. A voice came over the comms, low and steady. "Shadow Wing 1 through 5, green for launch. Shadow Wing 6 through 10, standby. Safe skies." In the hangar bays below, the Shadow-class frigates sat like sleeping predators, sleek, black, almost invisible against the void. Their hulls absorbed light, making them vanish on most sensors. Each one carried weapons older than the current galactic age, designed to disable and dismantle in silence. Pilots strapped in, engineers checked power cores, and the hangar crews moved with practiced speed. One by one, the frigates slid forward, on magnetic rails, their engines flaring briefly before going cold again. Captain Ward boarded her flagship, the Obsidian Spear, its bridge designed for efficiency rather than comfort. As she took her seat, the main screen lit up with the faces of her squadron leaders. "Remember," she said, her voice carrying the weight of experience, "we are not here to conquer. We are not here to negotiate. We are here to break the Krath and get out. Hit hard, vanish, and hit again. Keep their eyes on us and away from the Elvari survivors." The squadron leaders nodded. The countdown began. Shadow Fleet, initiating slipspace jump in 3, 2, 1. The blackness of space folded inward, swallowing the ship's whole. Meanwhile, in the heart of Krath-controlled space, the Elvari homeworld was under siege. Commander Silra had moved all remaining civilians into underground shelters. The air above the surface shimmered with heat from orbital bombardments. The Krath weren't just here to win. They wanted to crush the Elvari completely. Inside one of the deep bunkers, Silra stood with her surviving officers. Their resources were almost gone, their communications scrambled. "Commander," an aide said, voice shaking. "The Krath fleet is expanding the blockade. They've started targeting food stores." Silra's heart sank. "That means they're preparing for a long siege. They think they can starve us out. But then, something changed. High above the planet, in the silent darkness at the system's edge, the Shadow Fleet emerged from slip space. They appeared without a flash, without warning, as if the void had simply given birth to them. Their stealth fields engaged instantly, rendering them almost invisible. On the Obsidian Spear's bridge, Ward studied the tactical readout. Krath forces, 2 carriers, 6 destroyers, and a swarm of raiders. They've spread their formation. Good. Reed leaned over her shoulder. If we take out their carriers first, the swarm will lose coordination. Exactly, Ward said. Shadow Wings 1 through 3 target the carrier drives. Wings 4 and 5 focus on their long-range sensors. Once they're blind, we cut them apart. The first strike began without a sound. Human frigates glided into firing positions, cloaked by the shadows of asteroids. Then, in a single coordinated move, they unleashed electromagnetic pulses that ripped through the Krath's sensor arrays. Confused, the Krath ships spun in different directions, firing blindly into the dark. Moments later, precision railgun rounds slammed into the first carrier's engines, tearing them open like paper. Explosions rippled through its hull, and within minutes, the massive ship broke apart. From the surface, the Elvari saw flashes in the upper atmosphere. They braced for another wave of Krath bombardment, but instead, the enemy fire began to falter. "Commander," a lookout shouted, "something's happening in orbit. The Krath are losing ships." Silra's first thought was disbelief. The Council would never send help this fast, and yet something was clearly tearing the Krath apart. In orbit, Ward's fleet moved like ghosts. They struck and vanished, reappearing at new angles, never staying long enough to be targeted. The second carrier tried to retreat, but Shadow Wing 3 intercepted it, disabling its hyperdrive and leaving it adrift before delivering the final blow. The swarm ships, leaderless, began scattering. Human frigates chased them down in pairs, disabling engines and letting the wrecks drift. When the last Krath vessel exploded, the void went quiet again. "Status?" Ward asked. "No human losses," Reed reported. "Minimal damage. We're still cloaked." Ward nodded. "Good. Begin secondary sweep for any surviving Krath. Then we drop supplies to the Elvari and vanish." In the bunkers, Silra received a short, encrypted transmission. The voice was calm, almost detached. "Elvari Union, your skies are clear. Supplies incoming. Hold your ground. We will return if needed." "Who is this?" Silra asked, but the transmission ended. Moments later, large crates descended from orbit, parachuting into the city ruins. Inside were food, medicine, and advanced field equipment. The Elvari people emerged from the shelters, staring up at the black dots high above, silent ships drifting in the night. They carried no flags, no colors, and no names. Silra felt a strange chill. Whoever these rescuers were, they fought like no one she had ever seen. In the shadows of space, Captain Ward watched the planet below. "Mission complete. All ships, prepare for departure. We were never here." The Shadow Fleet turned away. Engines whisper quiet, slipping back into the darkness from which they came. The Krath had been broken. The Elvari had been saved. For now, and somewhere deep in the galaxy, rumors began to spread. The Deathworlders were moving again. The Krath were not used to losing. In their history of conquest, very few enemies had ever forced them into retreat, and none had done it so quickly. Yet in the skies above Elvera 4, their carriers burned, their swarm scattered, and their command channels were filled with confusion. Commander Vorash of the Krath fleet paced inside the wrecked bridge of his temporary command ship. "Identify the attackers," he ordered, in his harsh, clicking language. "Unknown," his sensor officer replied. "No heat signatures, no transponder codes. They strike and vanish." Vorash slammed a clawed fist onto the console. "Find them. No one hides from the swarm." But even as he spoke, the attackers were gone. Down on the surface of Elvara 4, Commander Silra stood on the highest balcony of the bunker complex. The night was eerily quiet. Just hours ago, the skies had been filled with Krath fire. Now there was nothing, only drifting debris glowing faintly in the upper atmosphere. Behind her, her second-in-command approached. "The people are asking who saved us," he said. Silra didn't look away from the sky. "I don't know, but whoever they are, they fight in ways I've never seen. Not even the Council's elite fleets move like that." The crates dropped by the mysterious ships had already been opened. The food was sealed in strong containers, designed for long storage. The medical kits contained technology far beyond Elvari standards, small devices that sealed wounds instantly, portable purifiers that could make clean water from poisoned wells. Silra picked up one of the devices earlier, and for a moment she had seen a small, etched emblem. 3 interlocked circles. She didn't recognize it, but it made her feel watched, as if the makers of this technology were always aware of where it ended up. In orbit, far beyond the planet's detection range, the Shadow Fleet had not yet left. Captain Elena Ward sat in the dim bridge of the Obsidian Spear, reviewing the operation. "We hit them hard," Commander Reed said. "But this was only a forward element of the Krath swarm. Their main fleets will respond. It's only a matter of time before they send reinforcements." Ward nodded. "Good. Let them come. We need them to focus here while we prepare the second phase." "Second phase?" Reed asked. "We're not just saving Elvara 4, Ward replied. "We're breaking the Krath in this entire sector. That means hitting their supply lines, their shipyards, and their command ships." Reed smirked. "Classic Deathworlder doctrine, hit the heart, not just the claws." Ward's eyes narrowed. "Exactly. On a distant moon in Krath space, a massive war assembly was already taking place. Dozens of swarm leaders stood inside a chamber shaped like a hive, its walls covered in glowing tactical maps. The loss at Elvara 4 was an insult, and they meant to answer it. Vorash stood at the center addressing the swarm. "These attackers hide in shadow, but they are not invincible. We will flood the system with ships, burn every Elvari world, and wait for them to show themselves again. Then we crush them." But one of the older swarm leaders, his shell marked with deep scars, hissed in warning. "I have seen this before. Long ago in the War of the Council's birth, there was a species that fought like this. Fast, precise, relentless. They were called humans." The name spread through the room like a cold wind. Vorash dismissed the warning with a growl. "Old myths. Humans are gone." "Perhaps," the elder said, "or perhaps they have been waiting." The waiting did not last long. 3 days later, as the Krath mobilized their reinforcements toward Elvara 4, their forward supply convoys began to vanish. Long-range communications went silent. Sensor drones sent to investigate found nothing but drifting wreckage, ships cut apart with surgical precision. In one case, an entire fuel station orbiting a gas giant disappeared without a trace. Its destruction, hidden until the Krath stumbled upon the floating remains. Back on Elvara 4, the Elvari noticed the change. The constant pressure of the blockade had lessened. Fewer enemy patrols appeared near the planet. Silra called a meeting of her officers. "Whoever is helping us isn't just defending, they're attacking everywhere the Krath touch. And they don't want to be seen," her second-in-command added. Silra's eyes narrowed. "That's what worries me. If they can destroy Krath fleets this easily, they could just as easily turn on us." In the shadows of space, Captain Ward listened to intercepted Krath communications. She could hear the frustration, the confusion, the growing fear. "They're starting to pull back to defend their core sectors," Reed reported. "Good," Ward said. "That gives us an opening for the next strike. Set course for Station Talric 7. It's one of their main relay hubs. If we cut it, their fleets here will be blind." The obsidian spear and its sister ship slipped back into slipspace, their black hulls vanishing without a trace. Ward leaned back in her chair, her mind already on the next move. She knew the Galactic Council would hear about this soon, if they hadn't already. The Council feared humans because of exactly this. When Deathworlders chose to fight, they didn't just win battles. They rewrote wars, and this war had only just begun. The Krath thought the battle for Elvara 4 was over. They were wrong. In the darkness beyond their sensors, the Deathworlders were still moving, and the shadows were closing in. The Galactic Council chamber was never truly quiet, but today it was chaos. Voices from dozens of species clashed in heated argument, their translators struggling to keep up. Holographic displays floated above the great table, showing reports. From Elvara 4 and the surrounding sectors, Chairman Valric, a tall, bird-like diplomat, slammed his staff down to demand silence. "Members of the Council," he said sharply, "we have confirmation that unknown warships, highly advanced and extremely aggressive, have entered Council space without authorization." A thin, scaled representative from the Cyvern sector hissed, "Unknown? We know who they are. Humans! They've come back." The word sent a ripple through the chamber. Some delegates looked uneasy, others visibly alarmed. Ambassador Trellin of the Norris clutched his robes. "If they have returned, this is a dangerous sign. The Deathworlders have no respect for council law. They will bring war to all of us." "War is already here," interrupted a deep-voiced Brenari general. "The Krath swarm is expanding. The humans are the only reason Elvara 4 still exists. Perhaps we should be grateful." A sharp exchange followed, some arguing that the humans should be contacted, others demanding immediate sanctions. But beneath the noise, there was an unspoken truth. No one in the council could move their fleets as fast, or fight as precisely, as the humans had in the past few days. Far from the politics, Captain Elena Ward sat in the dim light of the Obsidian Spear's war room. The main display showed the Krath's central communications hub, Station Talric 7, orbiting a red dwarf star deep in enemy territory. Commander Reed leaned against the table. "If we hit this, they'll lose control of the whole sector." Ward nodded. "Exactly. No orders in, no orders out. The swarm will fall apart faster." The plan was simple, but dangerous. Talric 7 was heavily armed, with long-range turrets and overlapping shield arrays. Any fleet charging in would be shredded in minutes, but the Shadow Fleet wasn't a normal fleet. As the humans prepared their strike, the Krath were already feeling the pressure. In their war assembly, Commander Vorash paced restlessly. "Every supply line is being cut. Our scouts vanish. Even our secure channels are breached." An aide bowed low. "The attackers have struck Talric 7's outposts. We believe they will come for the station itself." Vorash bared his fangs. "Let them. We will trap them here. Send false data, lure them in, and close the jaws." The Shadow Fleet arrived at the edge of the system in silence. Cloaked and cold-running, they drifted through the asteroid belt, until Talric 7 came into view. Massive, angular, bristling with weapons. Ward studied it carefully. "This will take precision. Shadow Wings 1 through 3 disable outer defenses. Wings 4 and 5 prep for data insertion." The frigates split into their assigned roles. Railguns fired from extreme range, knocking out the station's forward turrets. Stealth drones slipped past the defenses, planting jammers on communication. "Relays!" The Krath defenders reacted fast, launching interceptors, but the humans were already moving. Shadow-class ships would appear for only a few seconds to fire before fading back into the void. Then the second phase began. A small shuttle from the Obsidian Spear darted toward the station under heavy fire. Inside, a team of human infiltrators, in dark armor, braced themselves. They were not here to destroy Talric 7's core. They were here to flood its systems with false commands, sending the Krath fleets into chaos. On the station's command deck, Alarms screamed. "They're in our systems," a Krath officer cried. "Fleet movements are being scrambled," Commander Vorash's voice thundered over the comms. "Seal the station. Destroy the intruders." But by the time the Krath locked down their systems, the humans were already gone. The shuttle vanished into the shadow of a nearby moon, and seconds later, the obsidian spear jumped out of the system. Behind them, Talric 7's own defenses began firing on Krath ships, tricked by false targeting data. Back on Elvara 4, Silra was receiving reports from her scouts. "Commander," her aide said in disbelief, "Krath fleets in 3 systems are fighting each other. Their reinforcements have stopped moving toward us entirely." Silra tried to understand the scale of what was happening. Whoever these humans were, they weren't just rescuers. They were dismantling the Krath war machine piece by piece. But that also meant something else. If the Krath couldn't strike back at the humans, they might turn their full rage on the sea. Elvari instead. In the Galactic Council chamber, fresh reports from the Krath war zone arrived. Ambassador Trellan's voice shook. "It is confirmed. The unknown ships are human. They are using stealth, infiltration, and sabotage. The Krath are collapsing in the sector." The Brenari general crossed his arms. "Then we should let them finish the job." Chairman Valric shook his head. "And when they finish, what then? Do you think the humans will return to their shadows? Or will they decide the galaxy needs their rule?" The council chamber grew quiet. In the darkness of deep space, the Shadow Fleet regrouped. The crews moved silently, checking damage, rearming weapons. The ships had survived another mission without losses. Reed approached Ward. "We've got council chatter. They know it's us now." Ward didn't look surprised. "Let them talk. The Krath are the priority. Once they're broken, we'll decide if we want to disappear again." Reed gave a faint smile. "And if we don't?" Ward's eyes stayed on the stars. "Then the galaxy will have to remember why Deathworlders stay hidden until they're needed." But far away, in the shattered remains of the Krath's forward base, Commander Vorash swore an oath. He would find these humans. He would learn their weaknesses. And when he did, the swarm would return the favor. The Shadow War had begun, and it was far from over. The Krath swarm was wounded, but not dead. Across their remaining strongholds, commanders gathered in war councils, their voices sharp with anger. Maps flickered in the air, showing broken supply lines and fleets scattered by human strikes. "Commander," Vorash stood at the center of the largest war assembly, his claws gripping the edge of the table. "We have been hunted and humiliated," he growled. "But the attackers have revealed themselves. They are human, and humans bleed like any other prey." He outlined his plan, one born from both desperation and fury. The Krath would stage a retreat, making it look as if they were abandoning the sector. They would leave a tempting target, a supply convoy filled with fuel and ammunition, unguarded except for a few escorts. In truth, the convoy would be bait. Hidden nearby would be the Krath's most dangerous fleet, armed with new weapons designed to pierce stealth fields. When the humans came for the convoy, the Krath would strike, far away, aboard the Obsidian Spear. Captain Elena Ward studied a new set of intelligence reports. Commander Reed pointed to the holomap. "This convoy is moving straight through the outer rim with almost no protection. Either they're out of ships, or they're begging us to hit them." Ward's gaze stayed on the projection, her mind turning over possibilities. "Too easy. They're hiding something. No Krath commander would risk fuel and munitions without cover unless they had a bigger plan." "So we leave it?" Reed asked. Ward shook her head. "No, we take it. But we take it our way." Preparations began immediately. The Shadow Fleet didn't approach the convoy directly. Instead, they spread out across a wide arc, moving slowly and using deep space debris to mask their approach. Stealth drones went in first, mapping every nearby object and scanning for unusual energy signatures. The drones found them, multiple Krath warships drifting cold and silent behind a massive asteroid cluster. The trap was exactly what Ward expected. Reed smirked when he saw the data. So, how do we turn this around? Ward's voice was calm, almost cold. We let them think they're the hunters. Then we close the jaws on them instead. The trap within the trap began. A small human frigate, Silent Dagger, broke cloak just far enough from the convoy to be seen. It fired a few shots at the escort, ships, then appeared to panic and turn away. As planned, the Krath took the bait. Hidden warships powered up and surged after the fleeing frigate. Commander Vorash himself was on the lead ship, confident this was the moment to end the Deathworlder threat. But the Silent Dagger wasn't running. It was leading them. The Krath fleet pursued into a narrow corridor between two massive asteroid belts. Inside, dozens of human ships waited with engines cold and weapons primed. When the Krath entered the kill zone, the humans struck. Railgun rounds tore through the first wave of Krath ships, ripping open hulls before shields could fully power up. Stealth bombers darted in from the flanks, dropping magnetized charges that clung to enemy armor before detonating. In the chaos, the convoy itself was seized by human boarding teams, who disabled the fuel cells and planted explosives on the munitions. Crates, just in case. On the bridge of his ship, Vorash roared in rage. "Reverse course! We've been ambushed!" But it was too late. Human frigates blocked every exit, moving in coordinated strikes that cut apart Krath formations before they could regroup. Ward's voice came over a secure human channel. "Shadow Wings, don't chase them, break them." Within minutes, the battle was over. The Krath lost half their fleet in the trap they had designed for the humans. The rest fled into deep space, leaving the precious convoy behind. After the battle, the Shadow Fleet didn't linger. The stolen supplies were loaded onto cloaked freighters and delivered to the Elvari, whose recovery was already underway thanks to previous aid. Commander Silra stood in the ruins of the old defense command, watching as food and fuel were unloaded. She still had no clear idea why these humans were helping or what they wanted. But she could no longer deny the truth. Without them, Elvara 4 would already be gone. Her aide approached. "Commander, we've intercepted more Krath transmissions. They're pulling back to defend their home sectors. Something's breaking them." Silra gave a faint smile. "I think I know who. In the Galactic Council chamber. The latest reports caused another storm of debate." Ambassador Trellan's voice was tense. "The humans have destroyed another Krath fleet. This was no random skirmish. They are conducting a coordinated campaign." The Brenari general leaned forward. "And they're winning. Something we've failed to do for years." Chairman Valric's feathers ruffled in frustration. "Winning or not, this level of power outside council control is dangerous. If they choose to turn their fleets on us, then perhaps we should make sure they don't," interrupted a quiet voice from the corner. It belonged to Ambassador Kalen of the Rim Worlds. "Instead of fearing them, perhaps we should speak to them." The room fell silent at the suggestion. In the hidden hangar of the Obsidian Spear, Ward inspected the captured Krath munitions. "Intel confirms these weapons were meant for the next offensive against Elvara 4, Reed said. "By taking them, we've bought the Elvari at least a month to rebuild." Ward nodded. "A month isn't enough. We need to end this, and soon. If the Krath rally, they'll come back stronger." Reed glanced at her. "And the Council?" "Let them watch," Ward replied. "They'll see the same thing the Krath are seeing, that when Deathworlders appear from the shadows, the fight is already lost." "But deep in Krath space, Commander." Vorash was not finished. He stood before the Swarm Council, battered but unbroken. "They fight like predators," he admitted. "But predators can be hunted. I will find their nest. I will burn it." The Council approved his request for the largest fleet the Krath had ever assembled for a single mission. It would not strike the Elvari. It would strike the humans directly, and, somewhere in the dark, Captain Ward was already preparing for them. The Krath swarm gathered in the black void near the dying star called Vorek's Eye. It was a place where few ships dared to travel. Unstable gravity waves twisted space itself, and light from the star barely reached the edges of the system. But here, Commander Vorash had assembled the largest fleet the Krath had ever launched for a single mission. Rows upon rows of jagged warships floated in tight formation, their hulls glowing faintly with the power of newly forged weapons. These were not ordinary ships. They carried experimental sensor arrays designed to break through stealth fields, energy lances meant to pierce the armor of even the strongest Deathworlder vessels. Vorash stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Blood Talon, his claws tapping on the edge of the tactical display. "Set course," he ordered. "We strike at the heart of the shadows. We will find them, and we will end them." Deep in a cloaked sector known only to humanity, the Shadow Fleet's forward scouts had already detected the Krath's movement. Aboard the Obsidian Spear, Captain Elena Ward studied the incoming reports with a steady gaze. Commander Reed stood beside her, his voice grim. "This isn't a raid, it's an extermination fleet. If they find us—" "They won't," Ward interrupted. "We're not going to wait for them to find us. We'll choose the battlefield." She tapped the holo map, highlighting a narrow corridor of space near a collapsing star system. "Here, the debris field is dense enough to limit their movement, and the gravitational pull will play havoc with their formations. If we set the trap right, they won't be able to run." "You're thinking of another shadow net?" Reed asked. Ward gave a small smile. "A bigger one than we've ever built." Preparations began at once. Dozens of stealth drones were deployed across the chosen sector, linking together a network of mines, jammers, and false signal emitters. Hidden railgun platforms were anchored to drifting asteroids. The entire area became a deadly maze, invisible to the naked eye. The humans knew they could not outnumber the Krath. The only way to win was to force the swarm into fighting on their terms. The Krath fleet entered the sector hours later, their sensors sweeping the dark. No sign of them, a Krath officer reported to Vorash. Vorash narrowed his eyes. "They are here. They want us to chase them. Stay sharp." Then, a lone human frigate appeared in the distance, Silent Dagger, the same ship that had baited the Krath before. It fired a single volley, then vanished into the debris field. Vorash's claws dug into the armrest. "Follow it! Now!" The swarm surged forward. As the Krath ships entered the maze, the trap began to close. Mines exploded along the edges of their formation, forcing them to break apart. Jammers flooded their comms with static, making coordination nearly impossible. Hidden human ships opened fire from multiple angles, striking and vanishing before the Krath could return accurate fire. Railgun slugs ripped through armor, while targeted EMP bursts shut down engines mid-flight. The collapsing star's gravity added to the chaos, pulling damaged Krath vessels into its deadly embrace. On the bridge of the Obsidian Spear, Ward issued orders with calm precision. Wing 3 cut off their left flank. Wing 5, push them toward Sector Gamma. Keep them moving into the net. Commander Reed grinned. They're falling right into it. But the Krath fought back fiercely. Their new sensor arrays managed to lock onto a few shadow ships, and bright lances of energy pierced the dark, destroying 2 human frigates. The loss was felt, but Ward didn't waver. "Hold the line," she said. "Every second they stay here, we win." Commander Vorash realized too late what was happening. "They've boxed us in," his second-in-command shouted. "Gravity drift on our port side. If we lose more ships, we won't be able to break free." Vorash's rage boiled over. "All ships! Concentrate on their flagship! If we take it down, the rest will scatter." The Krath surged toward the Obsidian Spear. The battle became a storm of fire and debris, with human and Krath ships weaving between shattered asteroids. Ward stood, steady, even as the ship shook from near misses. Target the Blood Talon. If we break their command, the swarm will collapse. The Obsidian Spear's forward batteries opened fire, joined by 3 shadow frigates. Railgun slugs slammed into the Blood Talon's shields, overloading them. Explosions tore through its side, but Vorash refused to retreat. He drove his flagship closer, aiming to ram the human vessel. "Brace for impact!" Reed shouted. But just before the Blood Talon could strike, a hidden mine detonated beneath it, ripping the Krath ship in half. The explosion lit up the debris field, casting shadows across the battlefield. The Krath fleet faltered. Without Vorash's orders, their formation broke. Some tried to flee, only to be caught in the gravity pull of the collapsing star. Others were hunted down by the Shadow Fleet, one by one. When the last Krath ship was gone, silence returned to the sector. Ward stood on the bridge, looking at the drifting wreckage. Status: heavy damage to 4 ships, minor losses. "But the swarm is broken," Reed reported. "Good," Ward said quietly. "Signal the Elvery. Their skies will stay clear for a long time." On Elvera 4, Commander Silra received the news with relief and disbelief. "The Krath defeated?" she asked her aide. "More than that," the aide replied. "The Deathworlders say the swarm won't be able to return for years." Silra stepped outside the bunker, looking at the stars. "Then maybe it's time the galaxy stopped fearing them and started thanking them." In the Galactic Council chamber, the mood was unsettled. Chairman Valric spoke slowly. "The Krath threat in the outer sectors is ended, and it was ended by humans. There were no cheers, no applause, only silence. The Council knew what this meant. The Deathworlders had returned, and they had done what the Council itself could not. In the darkness of their hidden base, the Shadow Fleet powered down. The surviving crews rested, repairing their ships and preparing for whatever might come next. Captain Ward looked out at the stars. "Back to the shadows," she said. Commander Reed gave a small grin. "Until the next cry for help." And somewhere in the vast galaxy, someone would cry for help again, and the Deathworlders would be ready.